Hello and welcome everyone. This is Type V3 and let's activate that Genesic driver and initiate final fusion. I present to you the Super Robot Chogokin Genesic GaoGaiGar, the strongest god of destruction, the ultimate shape of courage, and the true form of the King of Braves. There are very few robots with such fearsome prestige as Genesic GaoGaiGar, and this SRC emulates almost all of that with its impressive presentation. The figure boasts an imposing silhouette with its 6.5-inch stature, and the sheer bulk of the body gives the illusion of a much larger toy. Genesic 3G seems to sparkle with its healthy combination of glossy and metallic finishes, while smaller details like those found on the head sculpt or legs have been picked out meticulously with such sharp applications of paint. Then there's the hair. It's cast in translucent orange plastic, then given a gold painted gradient over top. It looks beautiful and is easily the most visually unique element to this figure. Of course, Genesic GaoGaiGar's presentation doesn't stop there. Thanks to a neat little gimmick, you can extend the wings on the back to give him his flight mode. It reveals some nice metallic red detailing, and only adds to the awe-inspiring appearance. Now, for as much as I like the overall aesthetics, it isn't quite all rainbows and butterflies, as I found there are a few odd design decisions here and there. Firstly are the proportions, and this mainly only deals with the forearms and lower legs. Quite simply, they're too small. It doesn't look too bad on its own, but when displayed alongside the original GaoGaiGar, then things start to look strange. This comparison also brings up issues with the paint. The main difference being that Genesic dons shiny silver limbs as opposed to 3G's pearlescent off-white. I don't think it looks any worse, just different. Finally, GaoGaiGar's chrome knee drills have not been replicated on Genesic, and it does feel a little cheap for an otherwise expensive toy. Now, one of the first things you'll probably want to know is how is that diecast content and how heavy is this figure? Well, he's pretty weighty, but I'll tell you right now, he's no heavier than the original GaoGaiGar, and this is mostly due to the fact that diecast is basically here, and some of the joint work, so there's not that much going on. It's mostly just for structural purposes and balancing purposes, as opposed to being a all-metal figure. So, if what you want is a lot of metal, don't expect too much of that here, but then again, this is the Super Robot Chogokin toy line, which really isn't known for having huge amounts of metal content. As for articulation, well, I'm going to make things simple and remove the backpack, because this will be able to show you a lot more going on. And this actually just connects via a simple 2-peg system right there, and here are the holes. The wings themselves do have a little bit of movement that go back and forth, and the tail on Gadget Gao is fully jointed. Each one of these sections is a ball joint. You can remove these if you want to do the gadget bits, but I tend to just keep them on. There's also this little flap that moves up and down. Placing that off to the side, let's take a look at the actual robot, and he looks kind of odd without his backpack, but the articulation is as follows. These hair pieces each are on their own little stemmed ball joints, but they do pop off rather easy, so you just have to watch out for that when you're posing them. The head itself, the base of the neck is on a hinge that goes up and down, and the top of the neck is on a ball joint, which provides a good amount of movement. Of course, because he has such a spiky head and spiky hair, you are going to have some issues colliding, going left and right. The shoulders themselves, it'll probably be easier if I show you from the side. There is the shoulder pad itself has its own little joint there. This piece can get out of the way when you extend out the inner shoulder. Of course, there is the swing out shoulder joint, and then you can even move it upwards ever so slightly on the bigger shoulder connection at the base. Of course, there's a bicep swivel, double jointed elbow, and a ball jointed wrist. Now, to get the hands in front of the figure, you'll notice that this mane gets in the way. But to get them in front of this version of GaoGaiGar, there is a little trick. You pull or you push this piece here of the mane up, and then you take the rest of it and you pull it down. Now, the doors on the shoulder pad also open up, and this allows the inner arm to come forward, and through the extension of the swing out arm, you can get the fists in front of GaoGaiGar, and that's pretty neat. In the past, what you had to do with the other GaoGaiGar was there was a replaceable mane here with a cutout that allowed for the arm to squeeze in there. But I love how this has been implemented here, just because it makes things a little bit easier to manage. Of course, there is some work involved to get this all set up, but I like how you don't have to replace any pieces. The waist joint, there is a fairly good waist swivel. It does get collided a bit every now and then, but You can use it for a good amount of mobility. The lion's mouth itself can open up and close, and it can even go all the way out, which looks kind of funny. So I don't know if that's something you would find interesting. I don't ever believe it's been open this far this far in the actual anime. It's usually about here, so but it's there if you need it. The torso is actually pretty crazy. There's a double hinge system in the middle of the torso, which actually allows you to, if you pull up slightly, to extend and then just completely split him in half. Does it look silly? Yeah, but hey, he can do this. And of course, if he had the backpack on, he can't quite pull this off, but it's here for you. I mean, this also allows for a forward extension, pretty far forward extension, which is pretty good, so there you go. The hip skirts, they're on ball joints, but they are a little bit limited in how far they can get out of the way, especially in forward kicking movement. The hips themselves can't really kick too far forward. It'll probably be easier to show you from the back the connections on the hips, and you can tell they are die-cast ball-jointed stems in there, connected to a die-cast ball. Those move around, but then where the thigh swivel is another die-cast ball-jointed stem, which acts as a thigh swivel, as well as an independent joint for just slightly extended movement. You'll find that this has a double-jointed knee with a collapsible door there that just closes up when you bend it. And then on the front, this section of the knee tends to slide ever so slightly. It's not the most awe-inspiring thing, or it's not exactly the greatest piece of engineering I've seen, but it's nice that it's there. As for the toed claws, the back ones can close up and down, and the front ones can do the same thing as well as spin. And what's cool is you can actually get GaoGaiGar to stand on just his toes. It's a little tricky, but you can do it. The one thing that's pretty neat is these black die-cast panels can actually extend. The outside do extend, and this is more or less just to give him a nice flat-footed stance when he's got the traditional wide-legged stance. You can extend the inside ones too, but then this just creates the problem of him being unable to stand fairly straight. So I really like how they had that addition. Of course, you do get the Tamashii stage adapter, which is right here, and it basically just connects up here on this little slot gap. And it does it fairly simply. And then, of course, you could just put it on Tamashii stage. And this is where that minimal use of die-cast really comes into play. Because he's fairly light, you can actually use a Tamashii stage and it won't be any issue. Apart from that, there's not really much else I can say. The engineering is fairly good. It's not the most sophisticated thing I've seen out there, but it works. And it works pretty well. And of course, you've probably already guessed this, but because there's just a lot of black glossy plastic, he is a huge fingerprint magnet. Genesic GaoGaiGar comes with a lot in terms of accessories. Hand options start with the standard fists, open palms, as well as a pointing finger. For the left arm, you can replace the entire wrist to add on the Protect Shade accessory. It even comes with a specific posed hand. With the right arm, you're given a special tool to pull out the wrist socket. Then, with the help of a separate display stand, you've got yourself one Chogokin Magnum attack. Next up are the bolting driver and the will knife. These connect to the arm like the hands, via a ball joint. The clear green plastic looks fantastic, and the paint apps line up perfectly with Genesic itself. The bolting driver even comes with 3 different versions of the Genesic Phantom to attach to the tip. It's pretty cool and gives you a lot of play options. There's also a pair of drills to replace the straight and spiral ones on the figure's knees. They're supposed to look like they're spinning, but really they just look smooth. Finally, there's the Hell and Heaven hands. They both come in activated mode and clasp together. The glossy paint really makes them shine. Also, as a special first edition bonus, included are the activated Hell and Heaven hands in their glowing colors. It's a slick option and one that 3G fans will love. At $100, Genesic GaoGaiGar is the most expensive figure to be released under the Super Robot Chogokin banner, and that only leaves one final question. Is he worth it? Well, for starters, this toy is just gorgeous. Sure, some artistic liberties have been taken, but they never stray too far from the original design. The articulation found here is great too. It managed to take such a bulky body and have it move like a fairly agile action figure. It may not be the most sophisticated engineering I've seen on a robot of this type, nevertheless, it gets the job done brilliantly. Add on the plethora of accessories, and you've got yourself a multitude of play options. On the other hand, there's still a number of aspects that can dissuade you from this SRC, the most prominent being that this Genesic 3G doesn't combine or transform. If absolute size or metal content is what you're after, then again, it might be best to seek out other options. Ultimately, the Super Robot Chogokin Genesic GaoGaiGar is an action figure first and a display piece second. The die-cast pieces highlight the craftsmanship rather than define it. So, as long as you're the type of collector who likes to pick up and play with your figures, you'll find this release to be completely worth the high cost. It's an immaculate toy and quite possibly the best release in the toy line. Anyways, this has been Type V3. Thanks for watching, and I just have to wonder, what about the Goldion Crusher? Surely Bandai couldn't be bothered to produce something so ridiculous. Could they?